a recording. This thing is going to be recorded, and basically we're going to send you the recording link after that. And in the last minute, Yudi is a scientist and entrepreneur in the Netherlands. That's cool. We have a good mix here. I'm the only one from Asia because it's very, very late. So it makes sense. We had another webinar before, and everyone was from Asia. So now it's Europe and USA time. So what are we going to speak about today? I'm going to share my screen. By the way, if you have any questions, write them on the chat. I'll be happy to answer. And yeah, basically, I'm going to take a look at the chat from time to time just to see if someone has any questions. And let's try to share my screen so we can kind of figure out what we're talking about today. Excellent. Okay. So basically, we're going to talk about growing your city's startup ecosystem. This is my email for anyone that might have any questions or follow-ups and so on. So it's eli@startupblink.com. Our Twitter is @startupblink. And yeah, basically the topics for today, the short intro, and then go dive into this topic of startup ecosystems. First of all, a little bit about myself. I'm kind of a digital nomad of sorts. That's why I'm in Thailand now. I'm originally from Israel. Basically, this map that you see over here is kind of my life in the last 7 years. I'm basically changing locations every 2 months. I lived in more than 40 countries, traveled in more than 60. I think that that's one of the best benefits of startups, that they kind of allow you to, see the world and work on really cool things. So the freedom that they allow you is amazing. The challenges that they create are also pretty amazing. So it's kind of a trade-off, but I think it's pretty much worth it. And yeah, basically, I have a blog. I have a digital nomad blog at becomenomad.com. It's also a podcast. So if anyone is interested in this lifestyle of changing locations constantly, feel free to go there, and there's a lot of info. Today, we're going to speak a little bit about global startup ecosystems, which is all about StartupBlink. StartupBlink is basically a global startup ecosystem map. A little bit of information about us. We're partnered with Ansys, a big company in the US doing simulation software for startups. And we have tens of thousands of startups and co-working spaces, accelerators, and so on registered. If you haven't registered yet on StartupBlink, it's free. Feel free to do it. It's good to appear on the map. It's good to appear in many, many places. And that's a general tip that for anyone who is working on a project, register it, put it out there so people can reach you. And so basically, StartupBlink has been around for a few years now, got a lot of press from places like CNN, Forbes, Business Insider, and so on. And we're also starting, basically it's not just a map, it's also a research center about global startup ecosystems. And I think that's kind of interesting about StartupBlink, that we're kind of researching all the information that we get. And basically one of the things that we have is more than 70 meetups all over the world with community leaders and city leaders in each location. I'm going to speak a little bit about this program as well. So let's start with a little bit of a brief about startup ecosystems in general. So the idea over here is that we're all entrepreneurs, or we're working on our own projects and so on and so on. But in the end of the day, it's not a bubble, and we can't isolate ourselves in a bubble and kind of work on our project. We're very much connected to our local startup ecosystem, although we don't feel that way. And the idea over here is that your success as a startup founder has a lot to do with how good is the startup ecosystem is in your city. And that's kind of sad, because it means that you're not dependent only on your own skills. It's also really, really important where you are. And we all have to understand that and think about, are we in the right place or not? This is something that is relevant for all of us. There is a good let's say, there is a good reason why the really big startups in the world, the unicorns, over $1 billion valuation, are kind of located only in about, I think about 80% of them are located in the top 3 cities in the world. and maybe you have a few more cities. But the idea is that after the 10th or 11th or 12th city in the world that is ranked, there are no more unicorns, and there are very, very talented people over there. So it makes you kind of wonder how important, it shows you how important is where you are as a team and as a founder. Let me just jump and see that we don't have questions. So just a second, I'm gonna upload the chat. Okay, we're still okay, excellent. So if you have any questions, just let me know. And basically, I want to just give you, before we start diving into the topic, I just want to give you a little bit of, let's say, information about what are the best countries and what are the best cities to start your startup in or to be based at. This is based on a lot of information that we've been gathering, and I'm going to show you quickly how it looks like. So basically, let me just upload the site. Excellent. So what you see over here are tables that are ranking all the countries and cities in the world. We're going to do a quick view on the top countries. If anyone has any question, let me know. And also at the same time, I'm going to also send the link to you of the site so you can quickly also, browse if you're interested specifically to know what's going on in your location, because I know most of us are kind of interested of, what's going on in our country or in our location. So the link is StartupBlink.com. And over here, we can see that basically the strongest country in the world without a lot of surprise is the United States. We also, let me just tell you a little bit about how do we do those rankings. We take all the data that we've got. We measure how many entities there are. That's the quantity score. We also measure how good the entities are. That's the quality score. Very complicated algorithm. I'll spare you. We had a webinar about this about a month ago. We also check the business, how easy it is to do business and the business score, and this gives us the total score. So just for you to know, if you're in the United States, you're in luck because you're in the best startup ecosystem there is, or the best startup country there is. Then after that, regardless of Brexit or not, United Kingdom is second. Then you have Canada. Then you have Israel, a very interesting, by the way, case. Israel is a very small country with a very active startup ecosystem, so that's kind of nice to see. Germany is doing great recently, and it's fifth in the world. Then we have Sweden, Denmark, Scandinavia is kind of rocking, Switzerland, France, and Singapore is the first Asian country ranked 10th. Later we have Australia also going up recently. China is 12 and going very strongly recently. I think that if we would do the same test about 2 years ago, China would not be in the top 20. Now they're 12, and we're really expecting it to keep on jumping. Estonia at 13. Estonia is a super small country, so it shows you that small countries can actually get places. We have Spain 14, Netherlands, Ireland, South Korea, Russia, Finland at 19, also a small country, and Japan closing the list. So anyone who is interested in their own ranking of their country or their city can go to startuplink.com, scroll down to the tables, have a look. I'm just going to go over quickly about the cities just to make sure that you're in the right place, so you probably want to check it. So San Francisco is first. By the way, you can see here by the numbers, because everything is calculated, San Francisco is 3 times stronger than the second one, which is New York, and about 10 times stronger than London in number, which is third. So the idea over here is that San Francisco is a league of itself. There is nothing that even looks relatively similar to San Francisco. If you're building a very big startup and you have amazing aspirations, San Francisco is the place to be, because there is no other place like that on the planet. So we have New York, London third, Los Angeles, Berlin, which is a very cool startup ecosystem recently. Boston, Tel Aviv, that we talked about. Tel Aviv is the heart of the Israeli startup ecosystem. Chicago, Seattle, Paris in 10th. And yeah, basically the list is there. So if you have any questions, just go there and browse, see if you're in the right place. That's basically the idea for this. We have 900 cities ranked. If your city is not in those 900 cities, it means that you're probably not in the right place. So it's something that you should probably consider. Great. So let's jump back to the presentation. And basically, let's speak a little bit about why should you care about the strength of your local startup ecosystem. So the idea over here is that a good startup ecosystem keeps the talented people in the city and also attracts talent from outside. And that's what makes a really, really good startup ecosystem. San Francisco is a very good example, London as well. And the benefits for everyone is as following. If the startup ecosystem is good, you can easily get hired and hire. You can easily get investors. This one is very, very important. Investors operate only in a very limited amount of cities, and they follow success. So the idea is that when there is a big success story, then the investors are coming. Before the success story, they're not really there, and there is no way to get capital, so investors are sticking to big startup ecosystems. Getting to know potential team members, founders, supplier, clients. Let's say Tel Aviv, for example. In Tel Aviv, you have a meetup. You have about 3 startup-related meetup every day. So imagine the power that you have as a potential founder being exposed to all those events, just going from event to event, meeting clients, meeting investors, meeting team members and co-founders. And if you're in another place, let's say you're stuck in I don't know, Moldova, it's a lot more difficult. You know, I've been in Kishinev for 2 months last year. I love Kishinev, but then again, there's no one to speak with in regard to startups. So it's very, very important to be in the right place if you're trying to develop your startup. And basically also a good startup ecosystem also gives you inspiration and motivation, which is very, very important because having a startup is very difficult. It's sometimes too difficult emotionally, not only financially. And being surrounded by entrepreneurs is very helpful because those are people who have the same dream or are thinking exactly like you, and they can push you forward. If you're in a smaller place without a lot of startup ecosystem activity, you're probably going to be challenged a lot by your family, by your friends. It's going to look weird and so on and so on. So kind of something that you want to take into account. And of course, you have better infrastructure, which means co-working spaces, accelerators, and so on. So a lot of things can happen. Stop me if you have any questions, just send a question on the chat and I'll be happy to answer. Let's, after we talked about the general benefits of how cool it is to have a startup ecosystem and the impact on your own startup, let's talk a little bit about why you should consider becoming a leader of your local startup ecosystem. So the idea is to take a more active role in the startup ecosystem and why it makes sense. First of all, I want to tell you that I think no one ever regretted a decision to be more active in the startup ecosystem in general, because basically it just gives you a lot of power and you also do a lot of good and you help people. So that's something that is kind of no-brainer. If you have the energies and you cut your TV hours or whatever and you do it, there's a lot of benefits. And the idea over here is that basically your project is what you build multiplied by who you know. So by becoming a startup leader or taking a more active role in your startup ecosystem, basically you know a lot more people and that multiplies the power of your project. For example, if you are building an amazing project but you don't really know anyone to spread the word and so on, it's probably going to fail. It's also true, by the way, if you know the entire world, even Richard Branson and all those guys, and you're building a product that is very, very weak, it's also going to fail. So that's why it's multiplied. It's those two things together. Now let's talk a little bit about why you should actually take part in your local startup ecosystem, especially if your local startup ecosystem is not strong. And my basic assumption, or what I think, is that if you're in a place that is not in the top tier of startup ecosystems, and you can check again in StartupBlink and you can see where you're located, you only have 2 rational decisions that you can take. The first one is to leave it and to go somewhere else. Let's say you're currently in Bratislava in Slovakia and you go to San Francisco. That's a very good option. Or you want to go closer, you go to Berlin, let's say. And the second one is basically, if you don't want to leave it and you want to stay, your only other option in reality is to leave it. You have a really good opportunity because the startup ecosystem is not mature, so leaders are needed. And in the same time, you're pushing it up. And as you're pushing it up, you're pushing your personal branding, but also you're pushing the ecosystem, which will help your project, especially now that you're so well connected. So the idea is that if you take a more active role in your startup ecosystem, you become a connector. And becoming a connector is something very, very cool. The person that kind of can connect people that need something with the people who can provide. So that's a very good, and you know those guys. You kind of probably have one of those in your life. The person that just, you have a problem, you go to them and they tell you, oh yeah, you should speak with. This is an amazing power. And becoming active is giving you this power. So that's also important. And so yeah, there was a few reasons of why you should consider actually to go a little bit, take a little bit more active steps. Now let's talk a little bit about how you can help your local startup ecosystem grow. Few steps that are not that complicated. How you can take a more active role in your local startup ecosystem. So the first one is to go to meetups. Meetups are pretty amazing, and when you meet people, you kind of talk with people, you help people. That's step one, easy. The second step is actually to organize your own meetups. So you can do it alone. It doesn't have to be, by the way, with the site meetup. It can be any events that you put on Facebook and so on. But the idea is to create opportunities for people to connect. You can either do it alone or you can align yourself with a global organization. StartupBlink has a program like that of community leaders. I think it makes sense to align yourself with a global organization. And by the way, it doesn't have to be StartupBlink, although we'd be very, very happy if you join our program. But the idea is that it gives you a little bit of validation when you come and you represent something that is a little bit bigger. For example, StartupBlink has 70 meetups or 70 chapters, and then you can say, hey, I'm part of this organization that we have 70 locations that meet on the same day in the month, every month. And this is giving something bigger. And also, there's a little bit of technology behind your platform, so it's pretty good to start when you have a little bit of let's say backup over here. So the idea is to organize meetups. Then generally the mindset of someone who is a startup leader is, it's not the title and anything that has to do with it. It's being there to help people. And Brad Feld said it very, very well. Brad Feld is a very famous VC in Boulder, Colorado, and he said the mentality is give first. A startup leader always thinks about how can they give before they take. And that's something that is very interesting as a mindset, and it works. One more thing you can do is mentor startups, especially in accelerators, but in general, give advice, let people tell you what are their challenges and try to give them solutions. Another thing you can do is write a blog or write articles about your local startup ecosystem. In our own blog in StartupBlink, we have dozens of articles about location, and it helps because let's say someone wants to go now to Malta and they read this article, then they say, hey, there's actually startup life in Malta, so I'm going there. You can actually make a nice impact with one article. And the big sacrifice, if you really, really feel like it, it's actually to start an accelerator or a co-working space. But this one requires a lot of money and a lot of patience. But this is really a big help because those organizations are very helpful in general, co-working spaces and accelerators for startups. Good. So do we have any questions? Let me check again the chat, a quick check of the chat, and then we're going to continue. Just a minute. Okay, yeah, we do have questions, of course we do. Yeah, I see MFE is asking, what do you think about considering your family and friends and your hometown as first ecosystem to consider, no matter how small it is? I love it. I think that the smaller the ecosystem, the more it needs you. And I've seen people doing the most impact in smaller cities or in cities that don't have a lot of ecosystem. So yeah, you always start with your inner circle, the people that you know, and then you go a little bit wider. I do have to say that family and friends, sometimes if they're not entrepreneurs, they're going to be actually the ones that tell you, what the hell are you doing? Like you're totally out of it, get a job, you know? So it depends on if you have your immediate circle as people who support you and support the idea of entrepreneurship, or of people who kind of say, no, the 9 to 5 is the best, and this really influences. So the answer here, it depends on how entrepreneurial they are. But if they are, then that's a good place to start. And Alexandra is saying that she left for Amsterdam. Amsterdam is great, so you probably made a really, really good decision. So let's try to get our first panelist. And this is complicated. I'm going to stop sharing my screen in a second, and we'll try to get Alex online. So this is the link that I sent you for the program. And we have also Catherine. So Catherine, after Alex, I'm going to also invite you to speak a little bit. We have Kirill. Kirill, you didn't tell me that you're coming, but we'll also invite you. We have 2 Kirills. Okay, Kirill, you're a double. Which one are you? Send me the chat, the one that you are. I'm gonna also invite you. Excellent. And I see Luis as well. Wow, we have a lot of, you know, don't tell me only Catherine and Alex is gonna show up. Who is ready to join? Maybe send in the chat. So I don't know who should I upload, who should I promote now to the panelists. So send me a message, whoever is ready from our leaders, and that would be good. I still don't get any messages. Okay. I'll just be waiting a second so everyone can prepare themselves, and I'll be with you in a second. Okay, Alex, you ready? I can promote you to panelist. I'm going to promote you just a second. Clicking on the panelist view. Excellent. Yes. Catherine, I'm also promoting you. Just a second. Here's Catherine. We'll try doing, every time we promote only one person, I'm going to try doing maybe something that we promote everyone at the same time, just to have, and Kirill, I'm also going to promote you. Just send me a message on the chat, which one of the ones are you? And Luis also, if you want me to promote you, send me a message on the chat. We'd love to hear your stories from Peru. Great. Itam is asking, before we start, how do we know who is the leader of a certain chapter or city? That's easy. You go to StartupBlink.com, you switch to the Leaders tab, and in the Leaders tab, there is a filter, Community Leaders, and there you can kind of see who is the leader. Kirill, that's great. Stay on listen mode, and we'll try to get you on speaking mode next. Cool. Okay, so whoever is ready, we have Alex and Catherine. Can you click on the unmute button so we can hear you?
Yes.
Hey, Catherine.
Yes. Yep.
So yeah, you know what? Let's start with Catherine. So Catherine is our leader from Hong Kong, and Catherine,
hello.
Great to have you. It's you've been doing an amazing job in Hong Kong, and maybe you can tell us a little bit, first of all, about yourself, and also a little bit about the Community Leader program, and a little bit also about the startup ecosystem maybe in Hong Kong, because that's also very interesting, I think, for some of the people.
Yeah, for myself, I come from, can you hear me? Excuse me.
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me? Yep. So I'm actually from Hong Kong, and I have a logistic background and IT industry. I work in the IT industry, in the logistic industry. So it's nothing related to startup at all. So I actually so it's I don't have my own startup, but the reason I want to do it is because the startup people, they have the passion to make things happen, to make a contribution to the world, like to do amazing stuffs, and this spirit that really fascinates me. And for me, I also do it as a personal growth. And I like to. The thing is, I like to uh, help business to be successful. I sort of have an, is this my personal passion? So I actually, for me, I'm not very good at hosting the events because the thing is, if you are a startup lead, if you're a startup, if you have your, if someone has their startup business, and if they host an event, then they sort of speak the same language with other startup founders, because they can put themselves in their shoes and they can speak the same language. But for me, it's a little bit difficult. I really have to listen. And so for me, I go to a bunch of different meetups in the city. So there are other startup meetups in besides the StartupBlink one. So I go there and I chat to people and learn about different topics and things like that, and it was really difficult, quite so, but it's a huge learning curve, and it is very interesting, and I'm improving. And I think that it's just sort of something that makes me feel very exciting about is the startup founders. They have a different mindset than other people. That is, they they are able to sacrifice, like, you know what I mean, the ways they do things is like really hungry for the success. That's what really fascinates me. So I think I have that hungry attitude too. So therefore, I've become a leader. And yep. And that's basically, so that's basically, I can share that I go to different meetups, and I feel, and also for hosting the events, I meet different people. Some are people that have startup themselves, and some they do not have. They are looking for just the opportunities. So the thing is, it's interesting to chat to people, even though that I think that, the other night I had a chat with the other three people that don't have a startup, but they're just looking around for opportunities. So I wouldn't classify them as a startup people, because the thing is, they are looking for, like, the freedom of working as a startup founder, but not but they do not have the passion. So, but it's still interesting, because I learned some knowledge from the other lady who's very knowledgeable in fintech, and so it's still interesting. So I would say that my experience is that do not think too big. Just take small step at the beginning and talk to people, and just do not judge too much. So after some time, you would know that what role you want to play. Like, for example, you can be an opinion maker, you can be a connector. So anyone can be anything or any role in the startup ecosystem. So that's my, that's what I think.
Thanks, Catherine. Catherine is a great example of someone that, as she mentioned, didn't know a lot about startups in the beginning and learned a lot about it. And by the way, there is a big advantage from my experience of doing what Catherine is doing, which is basically listening and not only speaking. Because the minute that we think that we're mentors or that we're kind of leaders and whatever, we speak more than we listen. And I think, Catherine, it has a lot of value also, to learn and to listen to people. I also, when we continue the presentation, I'm also going to speak a little bit about problems that we encountered in startup ecosystems that are very, very common. So that's absolutely great. Thank you very, very much. And yeah, we can switch to Alex. Alex, you with us? I'm gonna, maybe I...
Alex is here now. I'm gonna unmute myself, so.
Excellent. So a quick introduction from Germany, and a little bit about why you joined, how it's been so far, and maybe a little bit also about the local startup ecosystem, what's going on there, what are the latest trends, and so on.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Alex Midler. If Ellie allows me to, I will go away from StartupBlink for a second and talk about a little bit of what happened to me. So I used to be a technical support agent at Apple, and hardware engineer, project manager. At some point, I found out about the startup community, and that's when I realized that networking is the main asset in building a successful business. So you need people, you need a network, and of course you need an idea. If you have that, then you're pretty much ready to go. It took me about 2 or 3 years to realize that it only makes sense to network with like-minded people in a like-minded group. And that is when I found StartupBlink. I joined the community. I'm now the country leader for Germany. I have successfully founded 2 startups in the form of a GmbH, a limited liability company in Germany. And I am also a professional real estate investor. So what has StartupBlink given me? It's given me the opportunity to set up a mastermind group with like-minded people in Frankfurt, and I'm setting up more communities around in Germany. So if anyone is listening in German, ihr könnt mich gerne kontaktieren per Telefon, WhatsApp, wie auch immer, oder über die StartupBlink website. So everyone's invited to open a StartupBlink community in Germany. To me specifically, I enjoy having a group of between 15 and 25 people where we can brainstorm each other's ideas, and sometimes we bring a speaker in to learn a little bit. We discuss the topic, and everyone can bring one problem to the table, and the other 20 people who are all like-minded, skilled entrepreneurs will solve that problem for you within a couple of minutes, or at least give you good ideas on how you can fix issues. And I think that's my main takeaway from StartupBlink. Thanks. Ellie, are you still online? I think Ellie is gone for the second. Catherine, is there anything you would want to add to what I just said?
So I think you're very good at organizing the event. That's what I wanted to say.
Well,
I think you're really passionate.
Yeah, I love organizing the events, and I think one of the main points as well during the meetings is that we set a certain amount of time for the brainstorming session. I just said that the brainstorming is really vital, and it gets actual solutions to people, and it only does that because I time it. I give everyone 60 seconds to introduce where they are at and what the problem is, and then I time another 5 minutes to brainstorm the issue, and then I just cut it. And if people want to network after to look at other alternatives or even build partnerships, then they can do that after. And I think that's one of the vital points in there. I think Ellie is back, so I'm going to hand back to you, if that's okay.
Thanks guys for saving the webinar. This webinar is like a startup. It's lots of disconnections, quick deaths, reverbs, so it's good.
It happens.
Lots of drama. Drama is good. So thank you both of you for your views, and you have totally different backgrounds. Like Alex, you're from Apple, and Catherine is only starting. Like a hardware startup that Alex is building is pretty cool with the race cars and stuff. He can tell you about this later. So really good to connect people from all over the world with different backgrounds, and we hope to continue. Excellent. Okay, so let's continue. I'm going to give you one slide basically on the StartupBlink Community Leader program. So basically the idea of StartupBlink, since it's a giant, you've seen it, it's a giant map with lots of startups and so on, lots of data technology, we kind of figured out about a year ago that we're missing out on a very, very important ingredient, which is the community. Because we have this platform, but we don't have boots on the ground, people on the ground that are kind of representing StartupBlink, and that's why we decided to open this program. And you know what, I'm just gonna give you a quick link to it so you can browse it later when you have time and see if this is something that you might be interested in. So I'm going to write the link very, very soon when the chat window pops up. So the idea is to connect data, technology, and community. I do want to say that in advance that when I'm going to share this link, the first thing that you have to do if you want to join is check if your city is not already taken, because we only allow one person per city. It's a decision that we've made, so you know, people can feel a little bit more like there is order here, and there isn't a lot of you know, confusion of who is doing what. So one of the things to think about is first of all check that your city is not taken, because that's important. Dozens of cities are already taken, so there is a link over there that shows you that. And basically, it's an exclusive program, one leader per city. The leaders are kind of one of the biggest responsibilities of the leaders is kind of organizing or attending the monthly networking meetups that we do. So we do a lot of events. We're going to assign a meetup group to you, and we're going to run the meetup group for you so you can focus on actually meeting people, and we're going to do all the administrative stuff, because it's a process that we know how to do well, because we have more than 70 chapters. You're gonna not only have your local startup community, but also gonna join other very awesome community leaders around the world. We have a monthly Google Hangout every month where we meet and speak a little bit about, try to brainstorm about strategies of how to bring more people, whatever the challenges that we encountered, and general stuff in general. So it's great to meet people from all over the world in those Hangouts in general and in our Facebook group. As I mentioned before, we take care of the administration for you, and you can use it also for personal branding, because we have community leaders that got press from top magazines in their country as a StartupBlink local representative, and also we share a lot of knowledge there. So it's a pretty interesting program. I gave you the link. I just want to say in advance, the program is paid. The program is losing money. We never did it for profit, but the program is paid. And the main reason that we did a paid program, which is important to say in anything that has to do with the startup game, so that's kind of a general lesson, skin in the game. And the idea is to filter the people who are serious from the people who are kind of like, hey, okay, I join, and then they disappear on you. The program was free. When it was free, we had a lot of community leaders, but zero activity. The minute we pushed it into paying, there were less, but a lot more activity. So this is a general recommendation for you, because I know all of you are building your own products and you're working on your own project. In the end, you're going to have to charge for your projects. And that's a very, very good point that you shouldn't avoid, because that shows you if there is really a need and value in what you provide. That's basically a little bit about the program. And let's jump to the general topic again, which is common problems in underdeveloped startup ecosystems. Before that, I'm just going to jump again to the chat to see if there are any questions, and then we'll jump right to the other ones. So we have Bruno joining from Rio. That's a cool city. I've been there. That's cool. Yeah, so basically, John is asking about differentiation from in cities that already have a lot of startup activity. So first of all, I have to tell you, John, that in the end of the day, the leaders themselves are kind of setting the direction of the program. So basically, the direction of their own branch, in a way. So in a way, we have a lot of leaders with very, very creative ideas. And in the end, even after we share all the knowledge that we've got in the monthly Hangouts, and we have a lot of formats that we offer, like masterminds and stuff like that, and invite the CEO and so on and so on. In the end, a lot of it has to do with you. It is harder to become a leader, I will admit that, in a big established city. And that requires a lot of creativity. What I noticed is, however, John, something to say in general is that people, especially in this sphere, quit very, very fast, also from leadership, especially because people don't have the time. So what I'm trying to say, or don't think that they have the time, or working like crazy on their startup and so on and so on. So what I'm trying to say is that I think that even in a place like San Francisco or New York, if you're dedicated to help your fellow startups in the city, within a year, you're going to establish a well-structured, let's say, a well-structured not only branding, but also well-structured reputation of what you're doing. And so the idea is that over here in the cities that are already popular, you need a little bit more persistence. But the idea is that nothing beats persistence, because people quit in this thing. If you stay there for your local community, it doesn't matter how big the city is, good things are going to happen. And StartupBlink helps you with the data that we've got, with all the resources, with the distribution channels and so on. Everything there is in the landing page. So that's basically the answer. But the answer is really in the landing page itself. So if you go there, you can read a little bit about it and see if, and if not, just send me a quick email and we can definitely answer. Let's quickly go over a very interesting slide about common problems in underdeveloped startup ecosystem. So the first one is risk aversion, and this is something that as leader or something who is active in the ecosystem, that's one of the things you want to work on, kind of push people into taking a little bit more risks and kind of encouraging people to start their own thing. For example, I'll give you an example from my country, from Israel, or let me give you an example from Greece. I have good friends in Greece, and basically in Greece, what happens is that when you open a business, people are kind of, your family and close friends, they're going to be kind of, hey, what are you doing? And it doesn't make sense, and you should get a job, and so on and so on. In Israel, it's exactly the opposite. In Israel, the situation is that if you're working for another person, your family and friends are going to tell you, hey, why don't you start a startup, and so on and so on. So the mentality is really, really important here. There is another issue that I found actually in the ex-Soviet Union countries, that the word entrepreneur implies someone who is manipulative or doing something that is against the law. So there are a lot of perceptions here that seem funny for us, you know, if you're from the West, but it exists, and it's really difficult. One more thing that is very, very important for startups is a general environment of trust. And this is something that is lacking. In some countries, people do not trust other people. They know that if they give them their money as an investor or as a co-founder, they're going to lose everything. So the idea is that when there is a critical mass of trust, it really helps. And that's something that as a leader also you kind of have to work on kind of telling people, hey, it's going to be okay. Just, you know, trust your intuition and it's going to be okay. And there is another big problem in those places, the lack of personal savings. You know, we talk a lot about investors and VCs and all those stuff, but in the end of the day, about 80% of the money invested in startups, and I have a chart to prove it, but not here, in another presentation about investors, is coming from people's personal credit all over the world, not only in developing countries. So there's a lot of buzz about venture capital and so on and so on. In the end of the day, it's your money. And in countries that don't have the money, it's kind of complicated. So here were a few things about things that kind of stop ecosystems from developing, and then people had to switch to Amsterdam because basically the situation in a specific ecosystem is not good enough. And let me just say that there are also a few disadvantages to becoming a big startup ecosystem hub like Tel Aviv or San Francisco. Usually it really increases the cost of living because the success and the investments and all the money flowing kind of also increases the wages, increases the cost of living. So if you go to one of those places, you kind of have to be prepared with the money. And one more thing is that your competitors are also going to be there. So this is something that you should consider, but you should not really be worried about your competitors. The number one reason for the death of startups is actually lack of interest or value in your own project. Let me just say that regarding to my lifestyle, to the digital nomad lifestyle, and again, if you want to hear more information, you can go to becomenomad.com and check it out, that one of the nice things that you can do is actually pick a place that has nice startup ecosystem and also very, very low cost of living. And I'm now in a place like that. It's called Chiang Mai in Thailand, but you have a lot more. Bali, Saigon, Berlin, Prague, Budapest, Barcelona, Medellin in Colombia. All those places are low cost, but at the same time have a very, very active startup ecosystem, and they're really, really cool places to be in. So there are some places that are not that expensive and still have a lot of startup activity. So definitely worthwhile. And that's basically it. That's my Gmail actually, but you can also write to my Gmail. If anyone has any questions, comments, suggestions, you can always approach me here. Just copy paste the link. Would be great if you had your startup on StartupBlink.com. Also great if you check the link that I gave you about the community leaders. Super, super great to have you with us. We enjoy really having this community. And that's us on Twitter. And yeah, that's basically it. Let's see if we have a few questions. And for those of you who have to go before the questions, and thank you for joining us. And let me just jump into a few questions to see if there is something, and then get some sleep. So let's see. That's a second. Excellent. I think we're done. We don't have any questions, so I'll take the opportunity of 2:30 in the morning to tell you all. We do have a question. Okay, Sami, so keep me up. That's I can postpone. Thank you, Rolo. That's really cool. You know what, Sami? Let's do this. You have my email. Let me send you my email just in case. Send me a quick email. And we'll attend. I'm looking forward. By the way, Sami, where are you from? You didn't introduce yourself, so if you can write where you're from. Paris. That's cool. Super cool city. Excellent. So it was a pleasure to have you. And we have webinars every month. You're on the webinar list, so every time we have a webinar, we're going to invite you. And thank you all. Have a good night, evening, morning, wherever you are. Have a good one. Bye-bye.